Gamers have really adapted over the years and expect a lot more from titles. The simplicity of classics like Pac-Man and Frogger is no longer good anymore. Not only do gamers expect a lot from the games that they play, but they also want to be treated fairly by the companies that they invest a lot of money into. Getting insulted by a gaming franchise can turn you away from specific games and franchises for years to come. Check out our awesome video, but before you do that, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of any new content. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. The Metal Gear Solid series is full of fun stealth, great action, and hours worth of missions that are worth playing. One of the biggest missteps in the series came with the 2015 release of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. The problems associated with this game are not with the main character or how it's played, but simply with the character of Quiet. For some reason, the developers behind Metal Gear Solid decided to create the scantily clad character of Quiet for players to use as an ally. Even more insulting is the game's so-called reasoning for her to stay wearing as little as possible. Through various cutscenes, players learn that Quiet has a parasitic disease that causes her to breathe through her skin. If her skin is covered up too much, then she died. That's one of the craziest excuses for digital eye candy to ever get put in any game. Not only was the character barely showing anything, but her storyline was cut short as well. The Phantom Pain seemed like a really rushed game, with several missing cutscenes towards the end. The only way to access her full story is through deleted scenes featured in a special edition of the game. Fans shouldn't have to pay extra just to unlock content that was actually supposed to be in the game. The Metal Gear Solid series has proven that they can create a great game without using cheap tricks. Quiet's character was completely unnecessary. The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. The great thing about Zelda games is that any type of gamer can pick up any one of the titles and jump right in. Each entry features an introductory tutorial level that teaches you combat, controls, and the best ways to get around. While this can be annoying for gamers who want to just play, it was very helpful for others. That was true right up until the release of Zelda: Skyward Sword. This Wii game introduces a lot of new elements with the motion controls, but the tutorial for the game is out of control. Between various cutscenes, tutorials, and training, a person isn't truly playing the game until they've logged in over 100 minutes of game time. Without a skip option, this can create a really tedious process just to get started. This is exactly what game manuals were made for. Going over a few new features would be fine, but the developers of Skyward Sword act like players have not ever played a Zelda game. Or any video game at all, for that matter. Skyward Sword is a great game once you get past this section, but it can be so frustrating that you easily give up before you get started. The first Zelda game on the Wii, Twilight Princess, didn't even have a tutorial this long. Game developers really need an option for players to skip past tutorials and allow them to discover the game on their own. Pokemon's many colors. The world of Pokemon remains as popular as ever. What started out as a major fad in the 1990s has turned into a regular part of children's lives as each new generation grows older. Even though the Pokemon have evolved and games have become more advanced, there's one thing that has remained true for the franchise: the release of multiple game versions. In one of the biggest video game ruses out there, Pokemon has created the same game twice, added in exclusive content to various titles, and then released them both at the same time. This formula started with Pokemon Red and Blue and still continues with the recent release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Even with the dual releases, Nintendo pushed things even further. For example, after Red and Blue were released, a third version entitled Yellow was created. Pokemon Platinum was essentially a remake of Diamond and Pearl, and Crystal went over the same events as Gold and Silver. Without all the details, it can be hard to tell the different versions apart. Not only do superfans feel compelled to own multiple versions of the same game, but it's probably really confusing for parents looking to purchase the game for their child. This makes it all too easy to purchase multiple copies of what is essentially the same game. If you enjoy playing Pokemon, then you really only need one version of the typical release. It's about time that the franchise ends this cash grab tradition and releases a single version of their next game. At least the popular app Pokemon Go was a single download. Dungeon Keeper. For PC gamers of the late 1990s, one of the more beloved titles was Dungeon Keeper. The strategy game was a lot different than other games because players got to play the role of the villain rather than the hero. In the game, you would build dungeons, send your imps for various duties, and prevent the heroes from delaying your domination. Not much was made from the game after its initial release until EA Games announced that it was porting the title to mobile devices. Not only that, but the game would be free. Despite the best hopes of classic Dungeon Keeper players from all over the world, gamers quickly realized just how bad the game would be. It eliminated a lot of the classic elements that made the first game a hit. The free-to-play mode was extremely limited unless you paid for a variety of upgrades. Actually building your dungeon for free required hours and hours just for a single section. The game was nothing like the original, and many gamers accused EA of ripping off the title instead of developing a true port of the classic game. The Dungeon Keeper mobile game is an extreme example of the problem with the free-to-play world. Many players have quickly realized that the free portion of the game, it's just not fun. But paying for things will quickly add up to more expenses than the cost of a full game. The Legend of Korra. The magic, fighting, and action featured on the Nickelodeon series The Legend of Korra would make great content for a video game. Sadly, the official Legend of Korra game is nothing like the series. The animated show features witty humor and action that actually ties into the story. The official video game features shoddy graphics, jumpy controls, and more button mashing than you can handle. The game tries to tie into the official series with cutscenes, but those are so compressed and poorly animated that they're just impossible to enjoy. The game likely caters to young fans of the series, but even they will be insulted by the repetitive and boring gameplay. Once you've played The Legend of Korra for 5 minutes, then you've pretty much explored everything the game has to offer. The game was released on multiple consoles and computers back in 2014. No version is better than the other, and each one features the same crappy gameplay. This is just another example of a rushed title that is attempting to cash in on a popular television series or movie. It was developed by Platinum Games, the same company that also produced the rushed and nearly unplayable Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants in Manhattan. This game also features the same button-mashing techniques with uninspired graphics and repetitive gameplay. The Legend of Korra has enough great content to make an excellent game, but this one is not that game. Batman Arkham Knight. The Batman Arkham series sold itself. It didn't need any marketing gimmicks to get DC Comic fans to flock to video game stores on the day of release. This is why it's so strange that the game developers and marketing team put so much emphasis on the release of Batman Arkham Knight back in 2015. I mean, let's face it was already enough that the game was going to feature the Batmobile. This added a whole new dynamic and gave players a whole new way to explore Gotham. Aside from the Batmobile, the marketing for the game put a ton of emphasis on the new mysterious character known as the Arkham Knight. Months before the game was released, fans were speculating on who the character would be. Was it Alfred seeking revenge after years of being overworked? Was it a whole new character somehow tied to Batman's past? Even though some of the fan theories could get a little wild, many people figured out the truth before the game was even released. The Arkham Knight was Jason Todd, the former Robin that was presumed dead and held hostage by the Joker. The twist was obvious, and the huge buildup left many fans disappointed with the marketing decision and letdown. They should have just let the game sell itself and allow the great stories to come to life. Instead, they treated fans like the big mystery couldn't be solved unless you purchased the game as soon as possible. Hopefully, the same mistake isn't made for the rumored release of Batman Arkham Insurgency. Watch Dogs. The Electronic Entertainment Expo, better known as E3, is the ultimate source for a glimpse at the future of gaming. At the 2012 E3, some of the biggest buzz went to a preview for the game Watch Dogs. Set in the city of Chicago, the game creates a world similar to Grand Theft Auto but focuses on hacking and computers more than mobsters and cop killing. The preview clip for the game featured incredible graphics that detailed Chicago's wind, cigarette smoke, and steam coming from the sewers. The realistic nature of the game and the world made many people hyped for the release. When the game was finally released, however, players realized that their expectations were not met. The final graphics on consoles like the Xbox One and PS4 were nowhere near as good as the ones shown at E3. While it didn't make a huge impact on the gaming experience, the next-generation graphics and realism of the game is what drew players into the title in the first place. Small details were missing, the characters' movements weren't as smooth, and the graphics failed to capture the essence of Chicago like the E3 video did. The more that players played, they quickly realized that the game felt like a modern version of Assassin's Creed with swords and guns getting replaced with hacking tools. Super Bomberman R. Along with The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, one of the other big launch games for the Nintendo Switch was Super Bomberman R. The action puzzle game returns to the roots of the series with a campaign mode and all of the great multiplayer action that fans have come to love. Before players got all excited to relive their favorite Bomberman moments, they realized that the game would be priced at full retail. Yep, that's right. The same price you have to pay for The Legend of Zelda would be the same amount you pay for Bomberman. It's not even like this Bomberman is an original game. It's actually an updated remake of the Super Nintendo classic. For a puzzle game like this, there's no way that it should cost more than $50. You can get a similar version of Bomberman from Xbox Live Arcade for around $5. Why pay more than 10 times the amount for something that's just not different? Gamers have also complained that the game runs at 30 frames per second. This creates awkward movements and reduces the smoothness of the game. The steep price is really hard to get around and takes a lot of fun out of the game. Even if it is a launch title, it should be priced at more of a value when considering the content of the game. You could say Super Bomberman R could be considered a big bomb because of it. The Martian VR experience. The world of virtual reality is just getting started, and there are already things that gamers are complaining about. While the PlayStation VR has gotten some great reviews, many players have been wary of the software available for release. One game that insults players is the Martian VR experience. The virtual reality game is based off of the Matt Damon movie of the same name. In the game, players play the first-person role of Damon's astronaut character. The game advertised the ability to explore Mars, complete missions, and follow the plot of the film. The result of the game is essentially an overlong advertisement for the movie. Not only is the movie shoved in your face, but you are the one who's forced to pay $20 for it. During super long loading times, you must watch ads for the movie. Yeah, I'm not kidding. The gameplay itself is extremely limiting, shuffles from multiple scenes, and just makes you feel trapped with all of the limited movements. If we are on Mars, we just want to explore it, not be forced into different situations. After paying for the VR set itself, the added cost of this exploitation will leave a bad taste in your mouth. There are plenty of other Mars exploration titles in the virtual reality world. This movie tie-in is a waste of time, money, and the potential for a true VR gaming experience. Star Wars Battlefront. Star Wars has always taken advantage of its fans. There are hundreds of action figures, Lego sets, and other highly sought-out collectibles, like replica lightsabers and helmets. Even the movies have had dozens of releases with new versions, different edits, and special types of cover art to lure fans into spending their valuable dollars. The video game world was mostly protected from this ever-growing scam up until the release of Star Wars Battlefront in 2015. The game itself is an excellent remake of the original Battlefront series and is one of the best ways that a Star Wars game should be made. Like most video games, Battlefront features all kinds of DLC, a $50 season pass, and add-on content that will empty your wallet. But the game also features multiple versions to purchase. Along with a standard version, the initial release had a deluxe version that featured extra maps and weapons. This was followed up with an ultimate version that featured even more content, including maps from Rogue One. Toss in a few Battlefront console package and it's all just too much. Too many versions of the same game and too many ways to take a player's hard-earned money. Many Star Wars fans probably bought extra versions of the game just for the special cases alone. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is scheduled for release in November of 2017, so expect to see more of the same. This is especially true around the holiday shopping season. Well, there you have it. What games do you think insulted gamers' intelligence the most? Are there any that we missed? Would you still play any of these games despite what they did? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to The Gamer on YouTube so you can stay up to date with all of our awesome videos. Keep gaming, friends. Stay frosty out there.